Welcome to NAB! Thank you so much to ZHIYUN for the invite to NAB, and let's get right into it. Hey guys, welcome to day 2. We're at NAB at the ZHIYUN booth. I was lucky enough to do a little 30-minute lighting workshop, and I wanted to share it with you guys on YouTube. Vegas is sometimes far away from people, and you can't always come, so I just wanted to share my little lighting workshop chat with you guys. So if you are a videographer transitioning into cinematography, if you want to start working with bigger crew, I'm going to be talking about that and my lighting approach as someone who's been in the industry for about 2 years now. So I had started in 2019 as a videographer, but I really made the transition around 2023. So it's probably 2 or 3 years now. If you follow The Wandering DP, I've also learned this from him. It is the sandbox, asking what the sandbox is, understanding the sandbox that it is that you're playing in. And this is a conversation that has to usually happen between you and your producer, you and the director. Do you like this project? Do you enjoy this project? Is this something that you want on your website? Are you personally going to be investing in this? Are you going to be calling in personal favors for this project? Or is this project just a money job? Is it just something to check the box? That is important because it'll dictate all of the other decisions that you have to make, right? It'll dictate your budget, it'll dictate the logistics, it'll dictate how long you spend in pre-production. After we've established what that sandbox is, our next step is to location scout. This sometimes seems to be the thing that gets overlooked the most. A lot of productions that are very small scope seem to think that things will go perfectly smooth if none of us have seen the location. This is as if you are planning a wedding without seeing your venue. So I think the importance of a pre-production scout is essential. If your gaffer can come and your key grip can come, fantastic. I think that's essential to the integrity of your plans, of your lighting plans, and it will also help you in terms of budgeting. As soon as you're done your location scout, it's likely that your producer is going to ask you for a gear list. Now, this gear list is either going to make or break your budget. Ideally, you ask for more than what you plan to use so that your bases are all covered. But when it does come to budget, I almost feel like I like working from the ground up. I don't necessarily like asking for 100% because, for example, if we're shooting in that living room scene from the Tinder campaign, that location is quite small, right? So I'm not going to be asking for certain lights, certain stands. I'm not going to be drawing them into the room knowing that props are going to be there, director's going to be there, lots of people are going to be in that room, and you're just not going to have enough space. Another note about logistics is knowing what floor you're shooting on. Sometimes if you're shooting bedroom scenes, they could potentially be on the second floor. So there are, again, solutions to those problems. Perhaps you get much bigger stands, but if you can't, you can also get mirrors. You can get 3x3 mirrors where you're not necessarily sending your light up all the way and you're reflecting that larger source in the air instead of sending your light, you're just sending the mirror. So that's also safer. It depends if you're shooting exterior, interior. Anyway, there's lots of pre-production questions that get asked, but there are lots of conversations that happen in that pre-production phase in order to set you up for success to lighting your scene. Another thing as a beginner DP is your communication style. This is huge when it comes to working with more advanced gaffers. It's really good to be familiar with what is on your package, maybe the types of lights or the types of fabric that you have. It's not make or break. I really believe that if you communicate that with your gaffer and you are honest with what your experience level is, they are there to help you. And if you're able to at least communicate, hey, I really want a hard sunlight push through this window, I want it to feel warm, and we want some haze in order to be able to see the beams of light. I feel like that is sometimes enough if you're able to communicate how you want to manipulate the light, if you want a Fresnel, if you want a spotlight, if you want a lantern, any of those things, if you need cutters. Like certain items I think are kind of crucial to know. With time, you're gonna learn what to ask for. If you're shooting outdoors, I had always asked for a courtesy for my camera operators because you know that they're going to be in the sun for a long time. Does it make the creative any better? No, you're not manipulating any light that is seen in the frame, but you're looking out for your crew, right? So there's just little different things that you will probably learn as time goes on, but that is one major thing, is just the logistics and understanding how your communication style is going to flow with your gaffer, with your key grip, and just being very transparent about where you're at in your skill level. The next thing I'm going to talk about is on set. So once you actually arrive to set, the standard order of operations is block, light, rehearse, shoot. Blocking essentially just means that you have your actors, your director, hopefully like your gaffer and your key grip are around to listen to and visualize and see where actors are going to be standing, where the motion is actually going to be happening. So that will definitely help your lighting plan, because if they ended up for whatever reason not coming to the scout, that helps. Also, creative can always change, so depending if there was a lot of time in between your scout and in between the actual shoot, things can change, right? So during that blocking, you'll have the most up-to-date information when it comes to before the roll. You then go into lighting, and then once the lighting is complete, you go into rehearsal, and then you go into shooting. So that's kind of just your natural progression. I'm going to stop you right there, actually. If you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Back to the video. Another thing during your scout for pre-production is to establish what you cannot control. If you cannot control the natural light that comes in through the windows, maybe consider getting curtains from your art department. Maybe consider shooting in a different direction. So things like time of day, things like windows, things like lights that you want to use but maybe necessarily aren't the right color temperature. That happens all the time. So start with those and then work from there. The second thing I'm going to talk about for the on-set kind of stuff is if you feel like you're stuck with a frame and you've landed on this frame, you've lit it, and you think to yourself like, oh, something just doesn't feel right about it. I'm not in love with it. I don't really know why. Ask yourself if you can see a significant checkerboard in your frame. This essentially is from left to right, from foreground to background. How many pockets of light and shadow can you identify? And if there aren't that many, that might be why. So going from left to right, if you just take like an example, even from this frame, there's obviously dark behind me, light on my face on the left, slightly less light on the right side, but there's so much light in this convention center, you won't really be able to tell. But if there are pockets of dark light from left to right on the screen, and also front to background, so you can see all of these practical lights behind me, it's not necessarily the most aesthetic frame because there's things that are distracting. This is like a blank wall. There's certain things, right, that will determine if you are drawn to something or not. But I think it's really important to establish, yes, you can light your subject and make them look good, but you have to also pay attention to the background and see how many levels of foreground. Let's say you're lighting something in the foreground here, I'm also lit, and something else behind me is lit. And every time that you introduce this new fixture, maybe there is some sort of shadow that falls, right? And that, again, introduces the checkerboard pattern that I'm talking about. I learned this from the Wandering DP. If none of what I just said made any sense, feel free to go follow him. He talks a lot about that checkerboard pattern. If you look at any of your favorite movies or stills from ShotDeck or Frameset, you probably enjoy looking at those references for that reason specifically, because there's so much depth to an image, because there are pockets of light and shadow. So the next time that you do look at a reference, I challenge you to actually like notice and see how many checkerboards you can find. If you are watching this and you are a videographer transitioning into cinematography, if you're just a beginner cinematographer and you're trying to really figure out lighting, two of the other things that I would highly recommend are spec work and observation. I'll start with observation. That is the freest option, do $0. On your next walk, I actually made an Instagram reel about this, but on your next walk, on your next drive to work, on any occasion where you are outdoors, witness what the natural sunlight is doing. Is it a cloudy day? What does the light look like? Is it a sunny day? Is it clear skies? What is the sun doing? Are there reflective surfaces that you're seeing light bounce off of? Are there shadows at play? Is the light moving around? Are you moving around the light? So those are little things to start to take note of. And I actually learned this from Matt Attia, to just grab your phone the next time that you see something very interesting and something that really catches your eye about light specifically. Just take a photo of it, and now you have this whole folder that you can reference the next time that you're on set and you're like, ugh, I don't know what I can do to make this frame more interesting. That's probably a good something to quite literally have in your back pocket to pull up and be like, let's try this. And maybe you have a couple mirrors on set, or you have something that will manipulate the light in an interesting way. So that's the first thing. Obviously, that is the freest thing you can do. The second thing is spec work. Now, this involves obviously some investment. This also involves investment into your community and connecting with other potential directors, producers who also want to level up their work, and finding those people that are in that same ballpark as you is really important, because they are just as interested and excited to create that menu on their website. And when I say menu, I'm referring to Kofi Yoboa. If you don't follow him on YouTube, I don't know what you're doing, but Kofi always has this analogy of a menu. On Google Maps, if you are searching for a restaurant that you really want to eat at, you're going to look at the menu, you're going to look at the reviews, you're going to look at the photos. If those things aren't there, you're not necessarily gaining the trust of that business. So it's very similar to being a DP or someone who is selling anything realistically. If you don't have the photos or that customer trust at first to prove hey, I can actually do this, it's very unlikely that you're going to get hired for that job. So in order to practice lighting, obviously spec work is a fantastic way to not only experiment with how to manipulate light, but also to just gain the confidence. And most of the time when I'm learning something and something comes about because of a happy accident, those are the coolest things that I try to remember for my next project, to think, oh, if my frame is boring, if I'm shooting into a flat wall, how can I actually make this interesting? And most of the time, yeah, happy accidents will teach you that, but it'll also happen in environments where you aren't under that much pressure, you aren't under the watch of a client, you aren't spending client money, you have created this opportunity yourself to then make those mistakes. So I think it's very, very, very valuable spec work, because like I said, not only are you learning the tools and physically moving the lights and getting your hands dirty on set, but you are then gaining the confidence after that set happens. You have now had experience communicating with all of those crew members, if they are good listeners, if they have great morale on set, if they have a good attitude, and it just makes the experience much better if you can take all of that and then replicate it in a real world setting. So once that paid opportunity does actually come to you, you're thinking to yourself, oh, I've done this before, so it's quite, I'm confident enough to accept this and to present yourself well to the paying client. These were two lights that I had from the very beginning, the 500B, the 300B. Both of those I had in my house, and I was able to just play around with what the grid does, what does the softbox do, why does light interact with certain pieces of fabric, do I keep my curtains closed and have this, what kind of color temperatures can I play around with and switch my camera white balance to match these, or do I make them different? So it was just, again, practice, experimenting, and I think the only way that I personally could get really good at lighting was to actually do the thing. I feel like that's a little bit of manifestation, how manifestation works too, where you're rising to the occasion of those opportunities, instead of looking at those opportunities at the bottom of this mountain and looking up and thinking, oh, how can I actually achieve this one thing that is so important, or it feels above me. That this is now you climbing that mountain and making those steps to then achieve that thing that you want, or to meet that opportunity where it meets you. So I hope that is helpful. That was pretty much all I talked about in that lighting breakdown. So if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Shout out to ZHIYUN for letting me experience NAB, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Hey guys, that's a wrap on NAB. I'm flying home tomorrow. Unfortunately, I should have just extended my trip, but because I want to just continue to say hi to all the cool booths, but that's the end of NAB for me. I'm heading to the Nikon party now, and then after that I hopefully maybe will take a nap if I can. if I have time. And then there's a B&H party. So party. That's pretty much what NAB is.